she's either not listening in those meetings or she was just being humble. I think she was just being humble. But our goal's been 1.5 million for this year, so we'll see. It's a little bit of a stretch, but I think we can get there. Q4 is crazy every year.
Welcome to today's interview. Today we have a super special guest. We have Connor joining us today. Now, Connor is coming off of a 6-figure month on Etsy with his POD business. He's on his way to almost $2 million in the POD space. So we have so much to unpack today in today's episode. So I'm really excited to get into it with Connor and really learn what he's doing in today's environment to be able to drive this level of success. So super excited to have you on today, Connor.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jesse.
All right, so Connor, you have been an engineer for 10 years now. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was a mechanical engineer for almost 11 years, over 10 years. I did that full time, and recently, last October, ended up stepping away from that job and went full time on our e-commerce business.
Awesome. So, okay, obviously an engineer, it's kind of like a higher paying job is my assumption. You're probably making decent money. So did that like initially scare you taking that jump going from, an engineer for 10 years to then becoming like a full-time POD seller? What did that look like for you? Can you maybe give me some context of that and maybe more about your story?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I'll dive into some more background on my story. I think maybe it'll be helpful for other people who maybe are in a similar position or do have those higher paying jobs and are looking maybe to Etsy to eventually step away from that, but just not knowing if they really can make that higher income and replace their job. So that's absolutely what I did, and I'll share some background. It was definitely very scary at first making that decision. It didn't happen overnight. It was by far the hardest decision I've ever had to make.
Mm-hmm.
And reflecting on it, it's been about 8 months now that we've gone full time, and it's been amazing. But reflecting back on that decision, I really break it down into like two main fears that I had, and I think the first fear was just like the financial fear. And that one for me was a little bit easier just to reason through and think through. At the point that we had made that decision to step away from my job, and eventually my wife stepped away from her job as well in January. But as we were thinking through that, just running through the numbers, like, how are we going to make this work? At that point, we'd been on Etsy for 4.5 years. And so
Yeah.
we had slowly built up that income each year. It got better and bigger, and to the point where it was a full-time business. We had hired an employee at that point. We had surpassed our income at our jobs, and we were kind of at this breaking point where we had to either scale back the business and go full-time on our jobs, or the other, scale back on our jobs and go all out on the business. And so it wasn't like a fluke thing. It didn't just happen overnight, and it wasn't unreasonable to think, the income would continue or even get far better as we dedicated more time to it. And so, yeah, that was the first fear, I think, and could reasonably think through that. We had saved all the income from our business over those 4 years and had a nice nest egg to sit on and confidently step into that next chapter of our life. And so, yeah, we were heading into that fifth Q4 season for us and knew what to expect, knew what we could expect over the next 12 months, 24 months. And so, yeah, that was the thought process there for that first fear. I think that the second fear that I wanted to talk about as I reflected on this was just like my career path and my future. I had dedicated the last 12 plus years of my life to this. As long as I could remember, I wanted to be an engineer. I went to school to be an engineer. I graduated with my bachelor's and master's in 4 years. I went to work at one of the biggest defense companies in the world that worked on amazing programs and had an amazing job. I loved what I was doing. I got to work with an awesome team. And it was really hard to step away from, because on one hand, I could see where my life would be in 10, 20, 30 years. It was very predictable. It'd be an amazing career. Very honorable for people who do stay that route and stick with it. But then on the other hand, I had this business that we had built, and the sky was the limit. I mean, that we weren't limited by our earning potential. It gives us so much more freedom to travel. We don't have those golden handcuffs where you're in that really nice cushy job and it's hard to step
Hmm.
away. You have that nice income, but you're like limited by where you can travel, when you can travel with PTO and things like that. And so as I weighed that decision, it was really difficult. And ultimately what it came down to is it was just an honest reflection on on my part. And it happened over many months. It wasn't just overnight. But I had to honestly reflect and just like look around the people around me and be like, do I want their job or their life in 10, 20, 30 years? And
Hmm.
I loved those people. I loved working with them. I respect them a ton. That some of the smartest people I've ever met. But
Yeah.
I had to make that reflection for myself and be like, I don't think that's what I want. And I think there's more out there. And so
Hmm.
I made the decision to step into somewhat of that unknown. And who knows if we're going to be selling on Etsy in 5 years or where we'll be, but
Yeah.
just trusting in that we'll figure it out and there's more out there and more freedom and we
Yeah.
can build the life that we want to live for Lauren and I and our future family. And yeah, so those are
Yeah.
kind of the two fears. I just wanted to dive a little deeper into those and share that with people because I know there's a lot of people out there who, when you start on Etsy, or you have a full time thing and it's a side
Mhm.
gig to start. Uh, but you can get to this point. It took us 4.5 years, but you can absolutely replace your income. This can become a full time business for you, and
Yeah.
hopefully, me just sharing that thought process helps some people out there. So yeah, it was a
Yeah.
little bit of a long winded answer, Jesse, but there you go.
No, it's great. And what I love about it is it's real and very practical too. Like you guys took such controlled steps with that. I know a lot of people don't, they might just want to take a leap if they saw some success, but you guys really took the time to nurture what you'd built and made sure the foundation was set, made sure you were ready to go. And then when you took the leap, I think it just makes it feel a lot more secure for you, which is awesome. But one thing I want to ask you that so you paused your job, or you quit your job, I should say, in October. What did you guys run during Q4? Like, you could give me all of Q4, maybe like November, December. Do you remember what your revenue was in that time frame?
Yeah, I'll give you the peak 30 days because I don't remember the other numbers, but I remember the peak 30 days we did 215K, which that was the peak we've ever been at. And so
Yeah.
we stepped right, and I didn't even really have time to adjust to like my new lifestyle. Like
Yeah.
it was 12-hour days fulfilling orders because it was just craziness, the busiest we've ever been. And so it was an amazing time. Very blessed and thankful. But yeah, that's what
Yeah.
we stepped right into right when I left my job.
That's amazing. Okay, so now fast forwarding. Okay, it's been like I think you said about 8 months or so since you quit your job, and then you went through that Q4 season, ran 215K in the peak 30 days, and then the last 30 days, though, roughly speaking, how much have you generated then? I know there was kind of a different season happening as well.
Yeah, so around the Mother's Day, Teachers Appreciation, Nurse Appreciation season, I think we
Mhm.
snapshotted those 30 days and it was around 136K. We just closed the books for May and actually did a little more, I think just over 140K for those
Nice.
31 days. So somewhere in that range, 135, 140K in that
Awesome.
season.
That's so good. That's amazing, to be honest. What was it that allowed you to drive that success? Was there one thing specifically? Was it multiple things? Like what? Like tell me like the raw details. What allowed you to do that?
Yeah, I think ultimately just following a detailed process to the T. I mean, and it's the process you teach, Jesse, right? And now that we
Mhm.
teach other students as well, and
Yeah.
just following that and trusting it. We've followed that process for 3 years now,
Hmm.
and gotten better and better at it each time we go through it. And I lean on that to that's the main driver for our success. I think at this point it's myself, Lauren, and we have a third team member.
Yeah.
And we all follow that process to a T, and it works. And so that's number one. I think the second thing is just properly leveraging the search volume,
Hmm.
leveraging that demand that's out there on Etsy, and putting products in front of customers who are already looking for those things. And so Yeah, I think it's kind of a cliche answer, but follow follow a process to the T, trust
Mhm.
it, and leverage the search volume that's out there.
Yeah. No, it's super good. Yeah, there's a lot of ways to do it, guys, when it comes to, growing your POD business or growing any business for that matter. But when you have a proven method in front of you, the biggest thing that Connor is, pointing at right now is follow it through, follow it to a T. I think Connor and Lauren both have been some of the most on point to exactly what I've done in my own business and taught to other sellers. I think they followed it so systematically, and that's why they're running, the numbers they are today. Again, it's taken time. It didn't happen overnight. They've built it brick by brick, listing by listing, and now they're having, 6-figure months, which is amazing. But there is so much value in whatever route you take, whatever it is. Go all in and see it all the way through, and magical things happen. It won't be instant. If anyone's selling you on it, it's going to happen instantly. It's just not the case. But if you're willing to see something through, give it 3 months, give it 6 months, give it a year, you're going to see some amazing results. So I appreciate you sharing that, Connor. Okay, so I know this answer already a little bit, but I want to kind of, pinpoint one main area, which is I know you had a lot of success with one main product type in that peak 30 days. Could you tell me what that one product type was, and then, the amount of revenue you drove with that, the amount of listings you had? Like, give me some context. Let the viewers know kind of what that looked like.
Yeah, so it was the 40-ounce tumblers, which just absolutely hit a home run for us
Yeah.
this season. And it was a brand new product that you brought to us at Inner Circle Prints, and it was a surprise. We weren't like expecting this coming right when it did. Um, it took us by surprise. We had planned to launch a bunch of listings in another drinkware product category, and
Hmm.
had a lot of that work done, a lot of that research done, ready to go. And then you kind of dropped the bomb like right before the season, and that product went live. And we started looking out there in the markets and just realized like there's so much demand for this, that there's a huge discrepancy between that supply and demand for this product, and
Hmm.
the margins that were out there. We made the decision to just pivot our focus towards those, and they did amazing. So I think we did like 116K when I looked back at that peak 30 days just
Hmm.
on those 40-ounce tumblers, or a majority of those orders were 40-ounce tumblers. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was a killer product. They crushed it.
That's awesome. How many listings did you guys have up for that product type to run 116K?
Yeah, so like I said, you launched or made that product available beginning of April, I think, and within
Hmm.
2 days we had posted 30 listings. We actually utilized a lot of the design work that we had already done and research that we were going to post on that other drinkware product, and
Yeah.
just put those on the 40-ounce tumbler listings. And so we had 30 to start with. Eventually, I think we got up to around 70 listings about the
Hmm.
peak time of the season. And yeah, so about 70 listings overall.
It's honestly insane. I know, again, we've been harping on my channel for the last probably month and a half now. I've been talking about 40-ounce tumblers, 40-ounce tumblers, 40-ounce tumblers, but there's such a reason behind it, and it's the supply and demand that Connor is talking about here. Seeing the opportunity with an item that is so under leveraged, where there's so much demand behind it and such great margins on an item in the POD space. The 40-ounce tumblers yield a really healthy profit margin, which is sometimes really hard to find. And when you mix that with the lack of fulfillment in the space, you just have an explosive product, because it's really been reserved so far. All of the successful Etsy shops for the 40-ounce tumblers, which are a very popular product. I think everyone knows about the 40-ounce tumblers in the US because of companies like Stanley and other drinkware companies out there. But when you leverage that the right way, it's insane what can happen with 70 listings. It's just mind-boggling. You can really see the discrepancy between the supply and demand. So appreciate you sharing that, Connor. All right. Perfect. Let's see. Where's my next question here? Um, okay. So do you think this opportunity is one that a seller could jump on with the right approach, and inside of 2025, build a 6-figure POD business, which I know is a big task no matter what, but do you think it's possible for someone to jump in today and be like, hey, I'm going to try to build out a 6-figure business in the next, handful of months before 2025 is over?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're testimonies of that. We did just that. We
Yeah.
ran over 100K in the last 30 days just with that product. And we had an established shop, which people would argue maybe that was helpful, but
Yeah.
you absolutely can do it with even a brand new shop. We have like
Hmm.
5, 6+ months now that you can get ready for Q4 in these
Hmm.
summer months leading up to that season. And
Yeah.
with this product category, scaling that out, being in all those different markets, properly leveraging that search volume that's going to peak in October, November, December of next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can absolutely do multi six figures just in that product category. So it's a huge opportunity. It's not going to last forever, right? That there's
Hmm.
going to be a flood of sellers who try and jump on this train. But if
Yep.
you're one of those people who outworks the others and
Hmm.
executes very well, follows a process to a T, yeah, you can
Yeah.
absolutely see that success.
Yeah, I love that. One thing I would want to point out right now, if I was a POD seller in the space, like I've generated a lot of success on Etsy, on Amazon as well. I've had over 425,000 print product sales on Etsy alone. And if I was to be doubling down today, like what would I do specifically to generate the most amount of success as fast as possible? If I was really asking myself that question, I would first off triple down on the 40-ounce tumblers and scale that whole product type out. Right now, it's the beginning of June. You have all of June. You have all of July. You have all of August. I think in the next 3 months, if you really double down, even if you don't have a ton of time available each week, but I think you could get so much done with this product type and then still have enough time left before you get into the actual Q4 season of November and December where things just go bonkers to be able to still be able to leverage another product type, which is the ornaments. So I think there's a perfect recipe right now. And I wanted to say this now because I know there's going to be sellers out there who actually do this over the next, 5 or so months where they triple down on the 40-ounce tumblers. They, apply the right methods, the right process. They leverage search volume. They get everything set. They start to see a lot of success with that. They move into ornaments. They double down there as well. And then Q4 blows them out of the water with what they think they could do. So I'm excited to see. That's all I have to say. I kind of like making some predictions sometimes on my channel. There's going to be a few sellers. I predicted Connor and Lauren. I said someone was going to run 100,000 in 30 days, and Connor and Lauren beat everyone to it very quickly. So, anyways, let's move on here. All right. So, Connor, for sellers that are stuck below the 10,000 per month level, so let's say it's a POD seller, they're fairly established, but they're just stuck right below that 10K level. What do you think is holding them back the most?
Yeah, first off, I guess congratulations. If you're at that point, you've seen some consistency, a decent amount of sales. If you're generating 5 figure months, that's awesome. I think
Yeah.
we've been there. Everyone in this space who's had some success has been at that level and had to overcome that hurdle to get to the next stage there. And I think for me, ultimately, it came down to just cutting out those distractions. Like a lot of times when I see people stuck there, they're trying to do like 3 or 4 or 5 different product types in one store, and they're distracted, they're spread thin, they're just like scraping the surface on some of those product categories. They do have an eye for design, probably they've built that skill set, but
Mm-hmm.
they haven't gone all out on one product to see the
Yeah.
huge results that they could generate. So that's number one. And then number two, I think just the search volume again, like, and it goes hand in hand. They're probably just scraping the surface. They're not fully leveraging the search volume and all the different niches and all the different micro markets that are high
Mm-hmm.
potential in that product category. And so, yeah, I think it comes down to focus, go all out on one, and like until you see that huge leap in income or revenue generated, and then
Mm-hmm.
you can expand yourself out to other product categories.
Yeah. So you think that the issue that most sellers face is they're either trying to be selling, in too many product types, they have access to a lot of different things, so they're kind of scattered out, or they try one thing for a while and then they pivot to a new thing. Is that what you're saying? They're just not focused enough to be able to find the success?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's definitely the case. I think thinking back to like when I started on Etsy back in 2020, 2021, when I started in print
Mm-hmm.
on demand, like at that time, that really the only opportunity was apparel. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people had tons of success doing that. And it was an amazing opportunity at that time. It still can be. But
Yeah.
in today's print on demand world, like there are so many products out there and so many opportunities.
Yeah.
And so it's way easier to get distracted. And I think focus is going to be even more so important for sellers in today's day and age.
Yeah. No, that's spot on. I think a big takeaway there is to really grasp is that the marketplace has matured. The product types that were easy to jump into before are more difficult today. Sellers are more equipped than before as well. So that means like their actual designs, their listings, their offer, they have different angles they've approached the market with. Like Etsy is a more mature marketplace. So if you just go the same route as before, which was everyone just jumped into apparel, you're dealing with a lot of difficult competition to be able to overcome. And then the reverse side of that is, when you're, just trying to get, any success at all, you're jumping from one product type to another and you're like, okay, that didn't work. Let me jump to another now. You end up just like spreading yourself thin and not driving any results. So to me, the best use of your time is to leverage strategic product types. If you take all that same time and effort and you double down on something like the 40-ounce tumblers or other strategic product types in the space, you're going to get better results. But you have to be willing to see it through. It will not happen instantly, especially if you just start out in the POD space. You're going to go through a bunch of different learning curves. It's not going to be easy, but at the end of the day, if you see it through and you have the right method in place, you're going to find abnormally, good results compared to if you were doing the same thing with a saturated, overblown product type like apparel, where it used to be an awesome opportunity. But anyways, thank you, Connor, for that. So with that being said, let's switch gears a little bit. So you've been an ICP coach now for over a year. Could you talk through some different clients you've enjoyed mentoring and watching, grow their POD business?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's been awesome working with everyone who we've gotten the chance to work with over the last year, and just like coming alongside them and being a small part in their journey and giving them the opportunity to have more success than we've ever had. That's
Yeah.
our ultimate goal. That was our goal when we first started it, and we just repeat that to ourselves all the time as we coach
Yeah.
people. But there's three people or three groups of sellers that I wanted to highlight. The
Mm-hmm.
first is Chris and Tracy. They've been one of my favorite sets of students by far. They're
Yeah.
by far like the hardest working people I know and who I
Mm-hmm.
coach. They both have full time jobs. They work crazy hours early in the morning, late at night to build their business. And they generated over 100K in their first 12 months. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I'm super excited to see them as they head into this next Q4 season, which will be a full year under their belt heading into that second season. And that's usually when
Yeah.
people and sellers see that exponential growth. And so I'm just super excited to see that happen for them. I know
Yeah.
specifically Tracy, in their goals, that they want her to be able to step away from her job, and they're well on their way to achieving that. So it's just been really
Yeah.
cool to step alongside them and be a small part of their lives and help them achieve their goals. So that's the first one I wanted to highlight. The second person I wanted to highlight was Lynn. Lynn
Mm-hmm.
is a really cool person. I would say, probably like a serial entrepreneur. She has her hands in a bunch of different things, but is really focused on Etsy right now. She has multiple shops. She's driven amazing results
Mm-hmm.
in both of those shops. Her goal is to live that like digital nomad life and be able to have that travel freedom and work from wherever and just pick up and go. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I wanted to share that one. She's been amazing to work with. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the third person I wanted to highlight was Lorena. She's
Mm-hmm.
my Australian student who, again, one of the hardest working people. Uh,
Yeah.
Also works full time. I think she works for a bank out there in Australia,
Mm-hmm.
but works those early mornings, late nights. I think I've been working with her over a year now. I think within the first 6 months that we were working together, she generated 115K. And
Mm-hmm.
the peak 30 days at Christmas last year, she did over 90K. So
Yeah.
amazing results. She has such an eye for designing and just a great skill set, but has really leaned into the process and
Yeah.
driven amazing results. So, yeah.
Love it. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Well, one thing, Connor doesn't know this necessarily, but one thing that's cool is all of our clients inside of our program, they have a private Slack channel with their coaches for one-on-one conversations. And I'm in all those channels. So I get to kind of, every once in a while go through these channels and see, how's the interaction going? Are they responding quickly? And our coaches are insane at response. I'm so much faster than I think I've ever been at responding back. But with that being said, some of these channels, like, with Chris and Tracy, I mean, there is like thousands and thousands of messages, and I'm not even kidding. Like, it's just wild to see how much value has been poured into, each of these individual channels. So shout out to all of our coaches, but shout out to you, Connor. You really serve each of your clients with so much integrity. And like you said, you want to see them surpass your results. So it's so cool to really see that in action. All right. So for these three sellers or groups of sellers, or for anyone else in the program that's, driving success that you've worked with, what kind of sets these ones apart? If you could pinpoint one thing or multiple things from sellers who maybe lag behind or have difficulties.
Yeah, I think ultimately it comes down to number one, hard work. This isn't an opportunity that it's not passive income. It's not just going to happen overnight. You're not going to deploy AI to build the business for you or just hire someone out of the gate who knows how to do it for you and you won't have a hand in it. It's going to require a lot of hard work over many months and probably multiple years. And if you're willing to do that, you can look up in a couple of years and probably have a consistent six-figure business. And
Yeah.
that's just the truth. It's going to be a lot of hard work. And these three people that I mentioned, they've shown that hard work. They're willing to do what it takes, whatever it takes to see that success. So that's number one. I think the second thing is related to what I was highlighting before. They've really dove into that process and followed it to a T, trusted the process, and stayed focused the whole time through. And I think just utilizing me and Lauren, if they're working with Lauren or Jesse G or any of the coaches, utilizing us and leaning on us. And I'm glad you brought that up about Chris and Tracy, because Chris and I, we go back and forth all the time, and I love it. I encourage that with everyone I work with. Like anyone who we're working with, they're never bothering us. Like I could talk about Etsy and business all day, and I'm learning just as much having those conversations with them. And it's really cool. I'll just give one example. So last fall, when Etsy had those pricing changes and they changed the visibility on shipping prices, Chris and I, like very quickly going back and forth, kind of discovered the kind of hack to do calculated shipping to get around that visibility issue with charging over $6. And we kind of kept that in our back pocket. And that's exactly what we deployed this spring when we launched those 40-ounce tumblers. And it's a big reason for that huge month that we just had and the very good profit margins that we took home. So just wanted to share that little detail.
Love that. That's so good. So real quick, if you guys are, wanting, like, you're like, hey, I think, with what Connor's described so far has been like, it's been so good. Connor's giving you the real view, like not a hyped up view, not an overblown view of like, this is going to be so awesome. Like if you, jump into coaching, you're going to be able to build a six-figure business in the next 3 days. I think you can see through on everything here that it's going to take time and effort, but there's a lot of confidence in the background with the products, with the approach, with, the angle in which you grow your business, with, someone like Connor or Lauren or Jesse G as your coach. So if that is, something that resonates with you and you're like, hey, I want to take this seriously, I want to actually double down and grow a 6-figure or 7-figure business realistically, I just really encourage you. We have a link in the description below. You can apply to work one-on-one with Connor right here. And, again, it's not going to be, this instant success, this overnight thing. But what's really cool is the positioning of the time frame of the year we sit in. We sit in the most opportune time. Right here is where I've grown my business the most year over year on Etsy and Amazon, was right in the summer months where things kind of slowed down a little bit. It allowed me just to double down on growth, get listings up, get designs done, and get so much progress forward. So Now is the most opportune time with a product type like the 40-ounce tumblers and the other strategic product types we offer to jump in, get the right education, get the right guidance, and commit to actually seeing this through, actually building a 6 or 7 figure business. It's not going to happen instantly, but I can promise you, if you're willing to see it through, if you're willing to go through those learning curves, you will get there. And Connor is such an amazing coach to guide you through that. So again, the link is in the description below. You can fill out the application there. Okay, perfect. All right, Connor, switching gears once again. If you could go back to the start, the very beginning of your POD days, what would you tell yourself knowing what you know now? And would there be anything you would change or do differently?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think as I was reflecting more on stepping away from my job and that whole part of it, I was thinking back, like, when did I realize this could, like, be the full-time thing? Like, we could step into doing Etsy full-time. And I wanted to share one story, and I think it relates to this question. So I think ultimately the thing I would change is, like, breaking some of my limiting beliefs earlier on, just about, like, you know, people follow the standard story, that the 9 to 5 job. And so you go to college, you get a good job, you get paid well because of that, you work really hard, you advance in your career, and then eventually, you're making the most income at the end of your career. And that's just not really true for people who own businesses. You can see exponential increases in your income with much little effort compared to the other route. And so
Yeah.
I was very deep in that normal 9 to 5 route at that point. I think it was back in like 2022, if I can remember correctly. I was at work. Like I said, I worked in the defense industry, so I designed like radar systems and missile systems for the U.S. Army. I was working on a missile launcher. It was really challenging design. This cool thing that fired multiple types of missiles, very challenging because they're just fired different ways. But I'm working on this really challenging thing. And it was around lunchtime. My phone was on my desk and it vibrated. And I got an order for like 50 sweatshirts. And at that time, the margins were crazy on bulk orders for sweatshirts. And I think I made like $18 or $20 per unit on that order. And the customer literally sent their logo, didn't ask for a discount, was just like, here's my logo. I want the 50 sweatshirts. And like in a minute, I had made more than I would have made in that day at work for like no effort. And
Yeah.
I just sat there and I was like, something that I believe isn't true, and I'm doing something wrong. And
Yeah.
so that, thinking back, that was like one moment where I think that belief broke instantly, or really started to break. And if I could change anything, I would have that happen quicker. So I could see the potential that there was in entrepreneurship and business and Etsy in general.
Yeah. That's so cool. What a cool story. I didn't even, okay, first off, I didn't know you did the designing for, these missiles where they're going to be, whatever you just explained. That's so cool. I didn't actually know that. But that is a really eye-opening moment when, you're, in-depth working, you take your lunch break, you're like, whoa, I just got an order of 50 units and made, almost $1,000 in profit or whatever you were saying on that. That's wild. So such a cool story and super true. You definitely, you don't want to let limiting beliefs just hold you back. And in this space, especially when you're someone who is, working a full-time job, and that has been the story that you've, been told and that you've bought into, and that's totally fine. It's a great thing to do. Most people do that, and people do it very successfully, working the normal 9 to 5. But there is other opportunities out there. And there's ones that you can be passionate about. There's things that you can double down on. And what Connor had said there was that, like, there's a limiting belief around, like, how much can you actually make? And like, it can be exponentially more, especially give it 1, 2, 5, 10 years, exponentially more than you would at your 9 to 5. So I appreciate that response there, Connor. That's really cool. All right. So final question for you for right now. What are your current goals right now for 2025 in your POD business? And then what amount of revenue do you think you'll achieve for the whole calendar year by the end of 2025?
Yeah. So immediate goals, we're trying to hire another person in our business. We've gotten overwhelmed, to be honest. We have one other team member, and over the next week or so, we're looking to add another one.
Yeah.
Just because it's gotten so crazy with the daily sales in both of our shops. And so we'd like to grow our team, eventually expand into more shops and grow all those shops together at the same time. And that only happens with a team at this point at the level we're at. So that's our immediate goals.
Mm-hmm.
I think in terms of revenue, you had Lauren on the other day and you asked her the same question, and she was kind of dodging the answer. She wouldn't give you like an exact revenue number. I think
Yeah.
she was just being humble because,
Yeah.
we have goal setting meetings at the beginning of the year. We have monthly business meetings and we talk about this often. So she's either not listening in those meetings or she was just being humble. I think she's just being humble. But our goal's been 1.5 million for this year. So we'll see. It's a little bit of a stretch, but I think we can get there. Q4
Yeah.
is crazy every year, and it's even crazier every year. So
Yeah, it's going to be wild to see what you guys do during November and December with all of the foundation you've laid, but now with an explosive product type that you've driven such quick success with. Where as you continue scaling that out by the end of the year, I can just only imagine what your guys' Q4 is going to look like. You're going to need multiple team members just to process the orders there, which is a really fun time to be growing your business. So anyways, thank you so much, Connor. I think you just delivered so much, practical value throughout this. And what's really cool with everything that you said today was I think we got the real side. I think sometimes in interviews that, you might see, on YouTube from other Etsy gurus or whatever, even sometimes, with me, you might see the more hyped up side of things, the excitement side. And it's like, oh, that sounds so cool. I'm ready to take action. But there is reality to the work you're going to pour in. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be overnight. But if you're willing to see it through with the right education, the right guidance, the right process, you are almost guaranteed to find success. Like that's the really cool part about the process. If you're going to actually do it right, you'll eventually get there. It might just take a little bit longer than you're thinking. So thank you so much for coming on today, Connor. If you guys, again, if you want to work one-on-one with Connor, the link is in the description below. You guys can go ahead and fill out the application there. You can put a little note about Connor if you want to work with him directly. But really appreciate you having you on the channel today, Connor.
yeah, thanks for having me, Jesse.